Thank you so much. Okay, well, first and foremost, it is such a tremendous honor and privilege to be here today, and I truly appreciate all of you tuning in. I presented for the first time at this conference last year, so I always feel at home here at the Women in Baseball Conference. Such a wonderful event filled with the most remarkable individuals. And I'm going to start this presentation the same way I started last year's, and this might be the most important thing I say all day, but I just want to start by extending a very special thank you and expressing my deepest gratitude to Leslie or Dr. H for this incredible opportunity and for your continued belief in me. You may never fully comprehend the profound impact you have had on my life in recent years. So with that, let's begin. Now, last year, for those that recall, I sat here and I spoke about Rachel Balkovic. By all measures, a historical figure, trailblazer, pioneer, and leader in advancing the integration of women into Major League Baseball. Today, I sit here prepared to discuss another historical figure with you, and that is Melissa Lambert, who is currently in her second year as the Director of Behavioral Science and Major League Mental Performance for the Kansas City Royals. Now, like Rachel, Melissa has also achieved several groundbreaking firsts, firmly establishing herself in professional baseball history. However, before diving into Melissa's role, I believe it is crucial to explain why her position with Kansas City is so relevant and timely, and how it underscores the growing importance of mental health and mental health treatment in society today. So as we are all aware, the COVID-19 pandemic caused widespread devastation across the globe. 4 years later, while thankfully many have returned to their daily routines, mental health challenges continue to remain a significant issue. And as you can see here on the screen, some of these statistics are deeply concerning, particularly those that pertain to the youth. For example, the overall surge in the prevalence of mental illness, which rose from 31% in 2019 to 45% in 2023. Those that experienced sadness and hopelessness, which rose from 28% in 2011 to 42% in 2021. And the 11.5%, or over 2.7 million young people who grapple with severe major depression. Although these statistics are deeply concerning, there is reason for optimism, thanks to organizations such as the Kansas City Royals, who are actively taking steps to prioritize mental health within the realm of professional sports. I believe it has become abundantly clear in recent years that mental health challenges are universal. They know zero boundaries and they impact diverse populations. And that includes our often admired and beloved professional baseball players. Despite their exceptional physical skill set, lucrative contracts, and national visibility, these athletes do face mental health challenges. And in recognizing this reality, the Kansas City Royals have taken steps to both address and mitigate these challenges. In 2023, Melissa Lambert, a licensed professional counselor specializing in clinical mental health, got the call up to the majors and was promoted to the Director of Behavioral Science and Major League Mental Performance. Now, with this promotion came two historical firsts, one for the Kansas City Royals and one for Major League Baseball. As Melissa took her seat in the dugout at Kauffman Stadium on opening day 2023, she became the first female Major League coach in Kansas City Royals history. With that, she also became the first mental health coach to occupy a Major League Baseball team dugout in an official capacity. So two historical firsts for Melissa Lambert on opening day 2023. A native of Montville, Connecticut, Melissa earned her bachelor's degree in psychology from Eastern Connecticut State University in 2007. During her time there, she was a defender on the soccer team, and she earned all-conference honors 3 years in a row. After graduation, she enrolled at Springfield College in Massachusetts, where she pursued a master's degree in mental health with a focus on child and adolescent psychology. The next 9 years were a bit of a whirlwind for Melissa. She was a behavioral health clinician. She was a clinical mental health therapist. She was a performance coach at a baseball and softball academy. And she was the program director at a highly renowned community center in Greater Hartford. In 2018, she transitioned to the professional sporting ranks by accepting a position with the Los Angeles Dodgers as an EAP, which stands for Employee Assistance Professional, as well as a mental skills coach. Now, Melissa's move into professional sports was actually driven by her observation that athletes of all ages and skill levels, even those of the highest caliber, were not receiving the necessary mental health support that they needed, either on or off the field. And she wanted to do something about that. She wanted to be part of the change. Now, Melissa's time in the National League East was brief. At a Major League Baseball mental health conference in 2018, she met a gentleman named Ryan Maid, who was then and remains the Senior Director of Behavioral Science for the Kansas City Royals. Maid persuaded Melissa to exchange one blue jersey for another and join him in the American League Central. So in 2019, she began working as the Assistant Director of Behavioral Science, with her attention focused primarily on the minor leagues and mental skill development within the farm system. Since reaching the majors in 2023, many of the Royal players have spoken incredibly highly of Melissa. However, more importantly, they have graciously accepted her, and they've also recognized the many benefits she provides to the team and the organization. And as you can see on the screen here, there are a handful of quotes from players and personnel reiterating just how important Melissa is to the team and the organization. However, perhaps no one has been as graciously accepting and supportive of Melissa, her role, and the skill set she brings to the team, more so than Royals manager Matt Quatraro. And I'm going to talk about Quatraro more on the next slide because he is such a pivotal character in this story. One thing Melissa has constantly reiterated is that the buy-in she receives from the organization, the players, and particularly the manager has greatly benefited her and her ability to do her own job. And she has spoken incredibly highly of manager Matt Quatraro. Actually, when Quatraro assumed the role of manager in 2023, one of his biggest priorities right from the beginning was integrating a comprehensive model for mental health and mental performance within the organization. And actually, one of his first acts as manager was to meet with Melissa at the winter meetings right after he was hired, demonstrating how important mental health was to him, but more importantly, how important mental health would be to his new team. Now, from a day-to-day perspective, Melissa attends all medical, pitching, and hitting meetings. She watches bullpens, and she is always on the field during batting practice. She meets with players as well individually throughout the day and spends a lot of time with them talking about how their physiological and psychological mechanisms impact their mechanics on the field. Also, a key component of Melissa's job at the major league level, which wasn't as pertinent at the minor league level, is this emphasis placed on helping players manage life at home with their partner and or children. In addition to her work with the players, and I found this really interesting, a large part of Melissa's daily activities actually consists of working with the coaching staff. And what that includes is, for example, helping the coaches learn how to have difficult conversations with their players, helping the coaches learn how they can bring out certain behaviors they want to see from their players on the field, teaching the coaches how to see their players as individuals first and not just athletes. And what I found most fascinating, collaborating with coaches on how to make the training environment more game-like. So in other words, how can we effectively replicate the pressure-filled environment of the game in practice? So as you can see, Melissa's impact is of tremendous significance, not just to the players, but to everyone who plays a role in the Royals organization. Now, I want to take a step back for a moment and look at the timely nature of Melissa's role, which I believe is worth mentioning. So in May 2023, senior writer for The Athletic, Brittany Ghiroli, wrote a remarkable story in which Melissa was quoted that shined a much-needed light and really pulled back the curtain on the relationship between mental health and Major League Baseball. And Brittany recounted stories of Rockies closer Daniel Bard, Tigers outfielder Austin Meadows, and former Oakland Athletics relief pitcher Trevor May, all three of whom appeared on the injury list for anxiety in 2023. And Bard was really one of the first players to speak publicly about his battle with anxiety. And he shared that by openly discussing his own struggles with anxiety, he hoped to help normalize mental health discussions among players, which to his great credit, I think he has succeeded in doing. Other players were quoted in the article as well, including superstar and likely future Hall of Famer Kenley Jansen, who admitted to his own adoption of therapy and the benefit he has derived from it. So overall, I believe Brittany's article, which provides another indicator that mental health challenges are universal, was a critical step in the process of Major League Baseball beginning to provide players greater access to mental health resources, which I intend to discuss here more shortly. Fortunately, at this point in time, we have players speaking out publicly and acknowledging the significance of mental health challenges. And as a result, organizations and the league itself have started taking the need to implement mental health care much more seriously. And these are all steps in the right direction as we continue to try to break the stigma surrounding mental health. However, as Melissa has spoken about in the past, we will only succeed in this battle against mental health challenges if trust and transparency are present. Those are the two ingredients. And if we think about it, players' livelihoods are at stake, impacting their ability to provide for their families. So the fear of revealing anything related to mental health that could be perceived as negative by the organization is sure to cause hesitation among the players before sharing something personal. And I think this quote here on the screen from Melissa sums it up perfectly. Fear of where information goes. Players feel they may lose their job and be perceived differently if they share something personal or ask for help. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. This is one of the reasons why Melissa prioritizes being so actively involved in the players' daily routine. She is always present, and she is always doing her part to continue to earn their trust. I really love this quote from Melissa. Mental health and the need for support is a year-round thing. It's not just in May. And I certainly agree with that. I believe there's a lot of truth to that. Now, admittedly, Major League Baseball as a whole has made many positive strides in recent years in providing its players greater access to mental health resources. For example, at this moment, every minor and Major League player now has 24/7 access to a mental health professional. And some organizations have actually begun getting their coaches trained in this program called Mental Health First Aid. Also, the minor leaguers now have access to this app called Unmind, which basically provides daily check-ins on mood and provides a host of other mental health resources. So while all of this is good news and we are moving in the right direction, as I mentioned in the previous slide, in echoing Melissa's point, a mental health coach's role will only be and remain effective if it is continually built on trust and transparency. Again, those are the two ingredients, and that's the key each and every day. Apart from the widespread devastation the COVID-19 pandemic left in its wake, an enduring impact on mental health remains. As statistics reveal, a significant of the population continues to grapple with psychological distress. Mental health challenges have become a pervasive issue in affecting everyone from adults to high school students and even professional athletes, individuals we might otherwise think of as immune to such challenges. However, there are reasons for optimism. The inclusion of someone in Melissa's role not only provides critical support for the players in the dugout, but it also establishes a powerful precedent, paving the way for a future where, we hope, mental health is prioritized with the same urgency and importance as physical health. Thank you.
Thanks, Barrett. We have some time for some questions. If anybody has them, you can raise your hand or put them in the chat. I have one. Have you seen any other teams add a position like this after Melissa was hired? Is it a trend that they started, or?
So it's funny you mentioned that. And I asked Melissa about this maybe 2 or 3 months ago. And at that point in time, no teams have. And again, I am not an expert on this, but it gets really tricky when it comes to mental health because again, there's certain licenses that are required, and sometimes you have to refer out. There's even certain things that if players came to Melissa with, she would have to refer out to someone else. So it gets really tricky when it comes to mental health. I do know that, for example, a lot of teams have a psychologist or a psychiatrist on staff, quote unquote, but not necessarily a coach that travels with the team and is in the dugout to the same extent and capacity that Melissa is. As far as I know, that's the Royals are the only team that have done that.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, Marlene, go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation. I think it's very interesting, your comments that part of this work is to deal with home life management questions or issues. Do the players' families have access to Melissa as well, or?
Yes, and that's an excellent question. Because it really is. I mean, it's certainly a team on the field, but it's just as much a team off the field, whether you're talking about the players or the players and their loved ones. So yes, the Royals, and again, I can't speak for other organizations, but the Royals and Melissa in particular, is provide opportunities to speak with and consult players' families should they need it. It's something that I definitely hope more teams will be moving in that direction, because again, what goes on the field certainly impacts the player off the field as well. How could it not? I mean, your job is on the line and so forth. And I think the one thing that's really coming to light of late is because we think a lot of sports psychology, like we think of mental skills like confidence and visualization and that type of stuff. Well, we also have to get to the point where we're kind of separating between what entails mental health and what is mental skills. Because while they do align, Because certainly if I'm having a bad day on the field, it's probably going to affect me off the field as well. But for example, a lot of teams have mental skills coaches. They're called CMPCs, but they're not allowed to help when it comes to mental health because they're not a licensed counselor per se. So there's a really tight line you have to walk between mental skills and mental health.
Well, and I think her idea, or whoever's idea it was, for her to act as a coach and be on the field and be around the players and sort of normalize it, if you will, so they're not having to go in the office to talk.
Yeah.
Probably contributes to a lot of the success of this program.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. She's really made it known that she's available in areas where the players are comfortable, whether that's on the field, in the batting cages. It doesn't have to be in a room like you think of a traditional doctor-patient role. So.
I'd be interested in how she works with players that have been sent down to minor leagues, like if they develop a relationship with her in the major leagues and then they have to go back down to a minor league team. Do they still have that outlet for her? Are they kind of on their own? How do minor league teams use that position?
Sure. I don't have a specific answer to that, unfortunately, but I would assume that considering how forward thinking the Royals are in their mental health treatment, as you can see, there's plenty of opportunities for players that go through that AAA minor league up and down to seek out help if they need. And I'm sure Melissa, knowing her the little bit I do, would be more than willing to help anyone of any level, regardless of if they're in the majors or not. Because I think what helped Melissa is she was in the minor leagues since 2019, so she was able to develop a lot of relationships with these players. So now when she gets to the majors in 2023, she's known a lot of the players for so many years. And the Royals are one of those teams that kind of develop within the farm system. They don't just go out and sign players and trade. So I think being in the minor leagues for so long really benefited her in her position now, just establishing that relationship with the players.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Anyone else have any questions? Karen, go ahead. Oh, you're muted. Yeah.
I was just wondering, I think this is incredibly important, what you're doing and what Melissa's doing, what the Royals are doing. And when we just watch sports teams, baseball as well as the others, so much emphasis and protection is given to the athlete for physical injury. I mean, there's immediately physicians, coaches, PT, on people right away for them to be able to even return to the game if they've had a minor injury in the early part of, or however it is. Is there any attempt to not equate, but point out that a phase of anxiety or a period of anxiety or depression is as debilitating as a pulled hamstring? So not to equate the two types of, and not to call them injury, but they certainly do affect performance, yet we have no judgment about one because we visibly see it happening on the field. But on the other, you are subject to the kind of things that Simone Biles was subject to when she removed herself from the Olympics, for justifiable, valid, important reasons. Is there any attempt to kind of point out that these things go hand in hand, or are in the overall picture of the athlete? Or
Sure, and what a remarkable question, and thank you for bringing up Simone Biles, because I was going to mention whether it's Simone Biles or Kevin Love, a lot of these other professional athletes have really contributed to this conversation about mental health. So I think while obviously my presentation focused on baseball, I think we're in a good place across all professional sports. Again, thanks to Simone Biles and Kevin Love, who are really trying to have this conversation across all sports. But yeah, to your point, I think you can't just throw a Band-Aid on depression and expect it to heal 15 minutes later. Admittedly, Karen, I'm not in a real good position to answer that, just because that's not necessarily my background. I'm not a trained mental health clinician. But to your point, I think one thing I will share is that some players, there's a lot more mental I think there's a lot more players suffering with mental health trouble than we might see, than we might be made aware of. And again, credit to players that have come out and spoken publicly. As I mentioned, there is that fear, because if the organization perceives something negative, then again, that could be a paycheck. There could be a lot of negative ramifications involved. So like I ended my presentation, I pray we get to the point where mental health is treated with the same urgency and is given the same amount of financial resources as physical health and physical development. I think we're moving in that direction. But also, again, to your brilliant point, it's tough to quantify, because you're right. You can't really, like, you tear an ACL, okay, you're out for this number of, here's the rehab, here's the strategy. It's not the same for mental health. I mean, people go up and down every day based upon a lot of different things. So it's very hard to quantify. But I do pray we get to that point. It's that at some point we get there.
Yeah, thank you for this.
No, of course, my pleasure. Again, I don't have a background, so I wish I could have been more help in that, but I think it's an excellent point what you're bringing up.
Yeah, what you're doing is very important too.
Thank you.
Bethany asked, which Royals department head or manager brought in the push for a mental health administrator?
Sure. So I do know, for example, the gentleman that hired Melissa was Ryan Maid, and he has been he was the senior director of behavioral science for years. But their current manager, Matt Quattraro, the major league manager, he's the one I referenced that as soon as he came in, he met with Melissa at their winter meetings. So he's the one that's, again, there's always been that emphasis of mental health in the Royals organization, but I think Matt Quattraro, the hiring of him in 23, really made the push to get it at the major league level, bringing Melissa up to the majors and making it more public at the major league level. He really, from the beginning, said, I need to implement in my team some sort of mental health program. So I think Matt Quattraro deserves a lot of credit. But of course, again, it all starts with the owner and the front office and so forth. So they were clearly open to the idea as well. So it's just a kudos to the Royals organization as a whole.
Anyone else have any questions or comments for Barrett? I think that's everything in the chat. And if you do have any more, you think of anything, I'm sure you can drop them in the chat or reach out to Barrett and continue that conversation. It's a really important topic. Thank you so much for sharing.